Who do you think's going to win?
Well, we've got sort of a Manectric EX base deck that Daniel's running. Now, normally, Manectric, not that strong against Primal Groudon, but he's also got some Genesect EX in here as well.
Yeah.
As long as Primal Groudon doesn't find the Focus Sash, you can actually knock it out in one hit, something that many decks cannot claim the same.
Yeah, so we're going to have Danny Altavilla versus Kenny Britton here, round number 5 of the Pokemon TCG World Championships. Let's hear some noise for these two players as we get started here. This is round 5 of 7. These two players are competing to advance to day number 2.
All right, so right off the bat, we see both players are starting out, and that is an active Shaman for Daniel. Probably not the best starter to have.
Yeah, Shaman EX, not really a Pokemon you want to start with. It's really used for its coming into play ability. If you start with it, you can't use it. Also, Daniel only plays one Shaman EX, so unfortunate that he's starting with it here. One thing I want to point out, Virizion EX and Genesect EX. It's a deck that won last year's World Championships. Really fell out of favor. A lot of decks just kind of overpowered it this season. Things have just been too fast. We've seen like Night March decks be able to do 180 damage on the first turn and really just makes Virizion Genesect not a viable deck anymore. But we're seeing a big resurgence in Genesect EX because of cards like Primal Groudon EX. So we were seeing that here with Daniel's deck. Just 2 Genesect EX to give him a grass-type attacker to deal with Primal Groudon.
And on top of that, Genesect EX also has one of the very few ways to pull a Primal Groudon up into the active spot. Mentioned how there's just a handful of abilities. You drop a Plasma Energy down in Red Signal, and that can all of a sudden put you in an incredible spot.
Yeah, so looks like Daniel started the game off with an N. Both players shuffled in and drew 6 cards. You attach Lightning Energy to that Manectric EX on the bench, playing that Acro Bike for an extra card, and that'll be his first turn.
So I guess Daniel's strategy is, it doesn't start quite as quickly as some other decks, but once you do have like Mega Manectric going, you can accelerate a ton of energy. In theory, he gets a bunch of energy on Genesect, and then he has all the tools he needs to start knocking out Groudons.
Yeah, I think at this point, Kenny's probably looking at the situation and saying, oh, my opponent is playing Manectric. This is the perfect matchup. Manectric EX is weak to fighting. Can't really do a whole lot against Primal Groudon EX, but I think he'll be in for a big surprise if that Genesect EX comes into play. He probably won't be expecting that.
Yeah, I don't know how much these players have been able to study each other's decks, but I would certainly be surprised. I would say Manectric is not paired with Genesect nearly as often as some other attackers like the water ones.
Yeah, but that Plasma Energy might tip Kenny off a little bit. You don't see that very often in Manectric decks.
That is an instant warning sign. And
right.
We actually do see he had Silent Lab down, Kenny did, but it has been replaced with Rough Seas. So now if Daniel does do something like find himself a Shaman, he can start drawing cards again.
Right, so looks like he's going to be a little bit aggressive with this Manectric EX. I think he'll be trying to find that Manectric Spirit Link and Mega Manectric EX so he can start to use that Turbo Bolt attack, get stuff going. Otherwise, he might have to settle for Assault Laser or maybe Overrun. I'm not sure which one he would go for.
Speaking of aggressive, all kinds of cards here built in Daniel's deck to sort of draw as quickly as possible. Acro Bike, you're looking at discarding a card. I don't care. I got to dig deeper. Trainer's Mail, digging top 4 cards of your deck to pull in a trainer. It looked like he actually grabbed himself a Shadow Tribe.
Yeah, and that's got to confuse Kenny even more. Maybe at this point he's starting to put the pieces together, and, well, yeah, at this point I think he figured it out. There is a Genesect EX in Daniel's deck.
Ooh, and this is kind of the dream for Daniel. You have your Mega Manectric ready to go. I guess, does he not have the second energy? Just was able to accelerate 1 on a Genesect?
Yeah, he does have a Plasma Energy in the discard pile, but you cannot get that back with Turbo Bolt, so just gets that 1 grass energy. Of course, Genesect EX's Megalo Cannon requires 3 energy, so Kenny's probably safe for at least 1 more turn, but after that it's going to get a little scary since we did see Daniel play Trainer's Mail to get Shadow Triad, which can get him Plasma Energy, which leads to Genesect's Red Signal, and that means Groudon is not safe.
Seriously, interesting play actually on Kenny's side, the Escape Rope. Both players sort of have to switch in. They get to choose which target goes in, but that does at least allow Kenny some temporary relief. That Groudon was sort of just going to soak up damage, and now it makes it a bit harder for Daniel to get those easy 2 prize cards.
Now, one of the big things about this Primal Groudon deck is it really is the biggest control deck we have right now, besides maybe Seismitoad EX with the item locking, that kind of thing. But it really controls the game based on who gets to throw out the first big attack. What you see happen usually is they'll load up their big Primal Groudon EX. And if you're facing that, you don't want to throw an EX out against it because you'll give up 2 prizes. But you can't really Lysander Groudon out. Wobbuffet also prevents Genesect's red signal, so still no way for Danny to bring up that Primal Groudon before it's fully charged. So it's still going to be a bit of a challenge for him.
Right. However, he did retreat the Genesect. He decided to put that up after his escape rope target. By retreating, you're like, oh, you're 1 energy behind. But if you can just attack with Mega Manectric again, that does accelerate the energy.
Right, so we're going to see a Skyla here, search for any trainer card he wants. But yeah, Kenny is in a bit of a weird spot. We see I don't believe he's been able to get Primal Groudon yet, still at that regular Groudon EX. So really slow start for him. Wobbuffet will probably go down this turn to a Turbo Bolt, meaning he's no longer protected from that red signal from Genesect EX. So things are starting to get a little ugly for Kenny. He's going to need to draw something pretty soon. If Daniel can ever red signal out that Primal Groudon and knock it out with Megalo Cannon, I don't know how Kenny recovers from that.
Yeah, it's pretty much game over from there. On top of that, Daniel actually played Skyla. Maybe not one of the most popular supporter cards, but it does have utility. For here, Daniel was able to Skyla for Battle Compressor. Discards 3 cards straight from your deck. Doesn't always sound like that great of an effect, but when you have a Pokemon like Mega Manectric, who accelerates energy from the discard pile, that made sure that Daniel had at least 2 grass energy to get instantly onto his Genesect.
Right, so we do see Turbo Bolt taking down that Wobbuffet, also powering up Genesect EX on the bench. Kenny's got to be a little nervous at this point. Probably doesn't know what to expect. This is a pretty unorthodox deck that Daniel is throwing at him. Usually Mega Manectric, like we said, is a pretty good matchup for Primal Groudon, but Genesect, that really throws a wrench in his plans.
Yeah, and it's strange. Like you said, Genesect has sort of fallen by the wayside, but whenever it comes to tournaments like Worlds, all of a sudden, the deck just crops back up. It just has some pretty good matchups.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's not that great in the regular meta, but it's a good meta play against the World's meta. So it's funny how that works.
There just happens to be a lot of popular threats that are weak to grass. Seismitoad EX, of course. Everybody knows at this point how dominant that card has been. Weak to grass. Primal Groudon, weak to grass. Primal Kyogre EX, weak to grass. So just a great time for Genesect to pop back up.
So one big drop we do see on Kenny's side is the Focus Sash. So that could potentially give him an extra turn to survive.
And there we do see the Primal Groudon EX, Primal Reversion happening. And, he's got it 1 turn away from being set up for a big Gaia Volcano. And this is probably a big turn for Daniel. If he can find Shadow Triad and red signal out that Primal Groudon EX, get some big damage on it, I think he'll be okay. But if he's unable to do that, and Kenny can Lysander out Genesect next turn and knock it out, Daniel's going to fall pretty far behind.
All right, so it looks like we are going to just go ahead and fix the camera focus for a second, so we'll be right back. But in the current game, it really seems like it's going to be weird. It's like you said, he cannot take a knockout, Daniel, but he can deal like the 230 damage. And then maybe with that much damage, you put Kenny in a situation where that Primal Groudon he spent so long building up still does fall. But yeah, the Mega Evolution combined with the Sash definitely gives him just that 1 turn I think he really needed.
Based on what just happened there, it looks like he did find the Plasma Energy and red signals out Primal Groudon EX, and we can't see that on the screen right now, but did see Kenny drag something up. So looks like that is going to happen. Primal Groudon EX is now in the active spot, and man, Daniel's going to get that big hit on that Primal Groudon.
Yeah. The Focus Sash does prevent the knockout, but it's still quite a bit of damage.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get that game up back to you soon. At this point, it's been some pretty unpredictable action. You never know what's going to show up at the Pokemon World Championships. Players will save their best decks for this tournament. We've seen it time and time again. We see crazy things pop up out of nowhere and just kind of take the field by storm.
And actually, it looks like Daniel opted to just do the Manectric damage, not dropping everything on the Genesect, but why not? Just put him halfway there, and that way you sort of force Kenny to have a Lysander and pull up your Genesect. Otherwise, you have a fresh Genesect ready to go.
Right. This is a little bit risky. If Kenny did have a Lysander this turn and knocks out his Genesect EX, Daniel has no real response 2 Turbo Bolts do not knock out a Primal Groudon EX.
But he doesn't have it.
Yeah, he misses it here, so this will be a big swing in this game. Daniel's going to take a pretty big lead, I think.
Yeah, Kenny, he can take 2 prize cards here, but Daniel has a pretty clear return knockout ready to go. And after that, you played the slow game, you got your 1 Pokemon set up, but oftentimes this Primal Groudon deck is not prepared to go for a second Primal Groudon. It's usually 1 or nothing.
Yeah, sometimes you can get the second one out. It's a big struggle, especially in this situation, though, when Daniel's able to put on such pressure. He has access to Genesect's Red Signal. It's going to be tough to even set up a second one, but we see a scramble
wait a
switch.
Second.
That's not an A-spec we see very often, but he'll be able to switch. Usually you can move energy with it, but I don't think he's going to move energy to a Robo-Substitute or Wobbuffet, whichever one he chooses.
Basically just played the fanciest switch you can. Well, I don't even know. There's the golden switch now these days.
That's the most expensive switch you can play, I think,
well,
in terms of like the opportunity.
The second most expensive switch has been dropped.
I mean, I'm sure he would have loved to use that for some better value, be able to scramble switch into another Primal Groudon EX. But, hey, sometimes you just need a switch, and I think that was actually a really smart play. I don't think it was a good idea to just knock out Manectric EX there.
Now, that's just basically giving up the game. It's fancy. You get 2 prize cards, but it is a sort of concession. What Kenny's trying to do is sort of, if maybe my opponent does not have another red signal, and it actually looks like, does he have another Plasma Energy in the discard pile?
I don't think so. He only plays 2 Plasma Energy in his deck. I think both of them are in play, so he won't even be able to red signal this turn.
Oh, yeah.
It looks like brilliant play from Kenny, realizing, if I take this knockout here, sure, I get 2 prizes, but what does that mean for me in the long run? Sure, I'll take 2 prizes, but how do I get the rest of them?
Right.
You won't. Genesec's just going to knock out your Primal Groudon EX. You have nothing left. So this gives him another turn to draw his Lysander, bring out Genesect EX, and knock it out.
Yeah, and for Kenny, he did what he needed to, bought himself that extra turn. Not 100% sure if I see Lysander not in his hand, but that's the one card I feel like you'd really be hoping for. That's what you set this opportunity up to do.
Right. So at this point, I'm not sure what you do if you're on Daniel's side. I guess try to get a second Genesect EX. Looks like he's going to go ahead and just put down regular Manectric EX and go with an overrun. This could be pretty smart. It's going to put 20 more damage on that Primal Groudon EX. That way, it's in range for a Turbo Bolt knockout, and that's actually a really big deal.
Yeah, now you sort of have covered some of the bases, even if Kenny does have the incredible Lysander knockout on Genesect. Well, you still are going to get knocked out in return by Manectric, and then they can also recycle those 3 energy that they left, or 2 of the 3 energy. So I feel like in the long-term plan, even though Kenny maybe does have like an immediate plan of action, I think Daniel is going to be able to pull this one off.
Yeah, and a lot of these plays might be confusing to people. You might say, why didn't Kenny just take a knockout? Why didn't Daniel knock out that Robo-Substitute? Why are they doing such fancy things? And it's all about taking board control. It's not always about who's leading in prizes. Sure, you win if you take all 6 prizes, but it's not a race most of the time. It's who can control the board and make sure they get to 6 prizes first. Doesn't matter if you're winning 6 prizes to 1. I've seen many comebacks. It's all about making sure you can get all of your prize cards, not just be in the lead.
We actually see a extremely rare supporter, the Caitlyn from Kenny.
Wow.
Haven't seen that ever. I mean, it's there. It's in the deck list. I see it. It's sort of a type of draw supporter where you just drop your hand, draw as many cards as you put down. It doesn't usually net you additional cards, but it can cycle through the deck.
Yeah, chalk that up to cards I did not expect to see at the World Championships. Caitlyn, generally regarded as not a great card, but it does make some sense. A lot of times you just want to draw a bunch of cards, but you have a bunch of cards in your hand that you don't want to discard. So this way you can just put them at the bottom of your deck and draw extra cards instead. So it might be a clever play. We just don't see it very often.
No, yeah, it took me by surprise. For a second, I was like, shouldn't he shuffle his deck before drawing cards? No, you don't shuffle with Caitlyn. That's that he is shuffling now from Daniel's end.
Yeah. So we've reached almost a stalemate position at this point. Neither player really wants to put out their big attacker for a knockout because then it'll give their opponent a first chance to knock out their big attacker. So it just kind of created this weird situation where neither player wants to put something out there. But, I mean, eventually something's got to give.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see the damage on each side of the field. Daniel has none. And Kenny's looking at 100 plus on each of his Groudon. I don't know if he runs any kind of strong enough heal to really reset that. Eventually, those Groudons are going to fall.
Yeah, and Daniel takes a max potion off of that trainer's mail. Yeah, he's going to discard that right away with an Ultra Ball. There is no damage on his board, so yeah. No point in really keeping that card, and there's really not ever going to be a situation where there's any damage. Primal Groudon is pretty much all or nothing. It's a massive over knockout where you just do way more damage than you need to do. Like a Gaia Volcano would do well over 400 damage to Manectric EX, or you just don't attack at all.
So we do see a retreat here. Oh, he does have another Genesect ready to go, so you could start powering that up. And he's actually going to grab the knockout with Mega Manectric EX.
Yeah, I think this is fine just because you can start to power up another Genesect EX on the bench. Only gets 1 Lightning Energy. I mean, he only plays 4 Grass total in his deck, but if you can find the other 2, then yeah, that'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, Shaman, I guess, is sitting with 1, but he could always get in a weird situation where you can just retreat the Shaman, and then that's in the discard pile. Also, though, Mega Manectric is in the active spot. If Kenny wants to take that knockout, he's open to Genesect, but then it's like, if you pull up Genesect, you're open to Manectric. So he has 2 huge EX attackers ready to go, ready to grab knockouts. And in the meantime, you can sort of see Daniel's even starting to pick up steam. He's leading in the prize trade. He can knock out some of these attack sponge Pokemon like Wobbuffet now.
I think at this point, Kenny's only hope in this game is to get a second Primal Groudon going. Leave Robo Substitute up there to buy another turn. He needs to do Primal Reversion, get a second Primal Groudon out, and he needs to have 2 ready to go. That way he has to hope to maybe trade like 2 for 1 on one of the EXs and then sweep the game. I mean, he's got to take 6 prizes and 3 attacks at this point, I would think.
Yeah, that's really your only out. And we actually don't see any energy yet on that second Groudon. It would like some. It would also like to, Mega Evolve or Primal Revolve.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny really has struggled with energy drops this game. I mean, he had to use a Mega Turbo just to get the 4th energy on that one Primal Groudon he has. So he's really struggled to get energy on the field. And with a deck this slow, you cannot afford to miss those energy drops.
Well, this is a start. He does have actually attaches to the Landorus. That's I guess another out to push forward some damage, and he can actually do that immediately and deal quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, with the strong energy and the Fighting Stadium, that's 70 base damage times 2 for weakness. So 140 damage for just a single energy cards. That's pretty efficient, and 30 damage to a benched Pokemon. So maybe I was wrong about Max Potion. Maybe he could have used it after all.
Yeah, I'm sure Mega Manectric wouldn't mind it right now. But this is also an interesting play. Now, Daniel, if he wants to knock out the Landorus, he's got to push forward Genesect. But if he pushes up Genesect, then it's going to fall. I guess he still definitely is in sort of an optimal position, because if Genesect falls, that means that he gets to keep the Mega Manectric, and then he can Turbo Bolt and accelerate to the other Genesect. It's all these weird plays where you have to look like 3-4 turns in advance.
Yeah, so we do see Versus Seeker for Skyla, and oh boy, here comes the G-Booster. So this is a full-on Genesect EX deck. Mega Manectric is being used as a sidekick as opposed to the regular Virizion EX. And that G-Booster A-Spec Pokemon tool allows Genesect EX to hit for 200 damage, and just as quickly as that Landorus came out, it's going to be knocked out.
Yeah, I saw the boosters. Okay, well, that's how you knock out Landorus. That one is not weak to grass, but you can gun it down using the A-Spec G-Booster. Right. Such an exciting card.
Yeah, usually gets a big knockout. So he's trying to figure out which 2 energy cards should I discard here. I think your first instinct would be just to get rid of the Plasma and the Lightning Energy, but it looks like he's going to get rid of a Grass and a Plasma Energy. But yeah, he's going to take 2 prize cards off of this, and this puts Kenny in quite a tough position you can't just let that Genesect live, right? I mean, you have to knock it out. But then if you do,
right,
Manectric EX or Mega Manectric comes out, uses Turbo Bolt, and you lose. So, I mean, what's your solution here?
Yeah, I guess your solution is concede and go straight into game 2. But I'm just trying to think of like what conceivable scenario Kenny has where he can get 3 knockouts still. He hasn't taken 1 yet.
Yeah.
The Landorus was interesting. Maybe would have pulled it off if Daniel didn't have G Booster ready to go. But with it, he can pass.
He does have Pokemon Center Lady in his deck. He could heal 60 damage off of his Primal Groudon. That way he would survive a Turbo Bolt. The only problem is after that, you get hit by Turbo Bolt, and then the next Genesect gets powered up, and then you get knocked out. So I don't see a way for Kenny to really take all 6 of his prizes here before Daniel gets his last knockout. And at this point, you have to be wary of the time situation. There's only 50 minutes in a round. You have to win 2 games to win the series. So you might just concede this one and move on to game 2.
No, the winning, it might have sounded like a joke, but I really think the winning play would have been to scoop.
Yeah.
You want to play as much as you can in that second game. You can see how fast this deck can get ready to go. By turn 2, you could start Turbo Bolting. By turn 3, Genesect can be ready to go and do Megalo Cannon.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is if Daniel is running out of cards or something like that. I'm not sure how many cards are left in his deck. If you could maybe stall it out and win that way, but that is such an outside chance considering Daniel has Lysander and Shadow Triad to get back Plasma Energy for a red signal. There just seems like so many ways he can close this game out and get his last knockout on that just regular Groudon EX on the bench.
And it looks like he is going ahead and digging any card he doesn't want left in his deck with the Battle Compressor.
And looking through that tells me he has more than enough cards at this point to finish this game out. He's not going to run out of cards and lose that way.
Yeah. I thought, you're going pretty aggressive. He's playing a lot of bikes. He's opening a lot of letters from the mailbox. But there's still enough gas left in the tank.
Yeah, and at this point, I think we'll probably just see Turbo Bolt power up his Genesect EX again. And at that point, what does Kenny do?
Yeah, he's forced into taking prizes at some point. Maybe if he could have powered up a second Primal Groudon and gotten that ready with energy, maybe he has somewhat of a chance. But at the moment, I see 0 energy, and I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Right, so here we do see Mega Manectric EX coming back out. We'll see another Turbo Bolt getting 2 basic energy out of the discard pile and powering up Genesect EX once again. And Kenny again put in that position of what do you do? Do you knock out the Genesect on the bench with a Lysander, bring it out? No, then you get knocked out by Turbo Bolt. And yeah, Kenny recognizes he can't win anymore. Yep. And Daniel will take game number 1.
Yeah, I think that was the correct move.
Yeah.
It's definitely rough. You're playing this awesome anti-meta deck, can really destroy your opponent if they can't pull you up. But Genesect turns out to be, one of the few Pokemon that can get around that barrier. 2, one of the few grass Pokemon that can deal enough damage to get those one-hit knockouts if you can start powering up.
Yeah, Virizion Genesect, like you said, won last year's World Championships. Genesect EX has shown time and time again to be a very powerful card. But, the newer cards that have come out have really dethroned it, and it really hasn't been as powerful. But with that type advantage it does have, it's really showing to be a very intelligent play at this year's World Championships.
Absolutely. And while you do, I guess, give up some type of utility from the old Virizion version of the deck, where you have Verdant Wind and you can stop yourself from getting hit by things like Hypnotoxic Laser, Manectric is still really good. It deals a lot more damage, and I think in this type of format, it's really perfect for setting up those knockouts with another Pokemon. And heck, it can even set up knockouts with itself. 110 isn't really anything to sneeze at.
Yeah. Mega Manectric EX has been a big player as well. Showed up a ton at U.S. Nationals. Just seems to be in a very good spot right now because of that Rough Seas Stadium card. Survives quite a long time. Powers up your other Pokemon with Turbo Bolt. So an incredible card in its own right. This combination with Genesect EX, we saw it a little bit early in the season right when Mega Manectric EX came out. Kind of fell by the wayside, but, things in the Pokemon TCG seem to go in cycles. Something might not be good for a while, and then all of a sudden, this certain card is popular, this certain deck is popular, and hey, this is good again. Let's go back to this.
Yeah, Worlds is the biggest door, I think, for opening up an old strategy.
Yep.
Sometimes the old stuff really works, especially when players are sort of building these decks really catered to beating other things in the metagame. Like both players are ready to go. Let's go ahead and hop into game 2.
All right, so we have Kenny versus Daniel, game number 2. Again, this is round number 5 at day 1 of the Pokemon TCG World Championships. Again, if you win 5 rounds, you are guaranteed a spot in day number 2. You move on, you're still on the hunt for that $25,000 scholarship award, first prize. So this is a really big round. I mean, if a win and in is a pretty nice situation.
Yeah. Do you know if both these players are undefeated at the moment?
I'm not sure if they are, but
if they are, it's possible that they're playing for that day 2 right now.
Yeah. But, going back to the matchup here, as Daniel does start with his Genesect this game, even though it looks a little bad for Kenny, considering, the type advantage for Genesect EX, there were definitely moments where Kenny could have seized control of the matchup. He just wasn't able to capitalize. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kenny could make a comeback in game number 2, but we'll have to see what happens.
And he's opening with a decent Karina. He has energy ready to go. If you can attach one a turn, it's a good start. Genesect is probably a better Pokemon to sort of look at from the other side. Daniel's going to have to retreat it before he can start accelerating it with Mega Manectric. It's something, and he's actually got some Landorus EX pressure he can do as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a much different game. Landorus EX, with that energy, threatens so many things. The biggest thing is since Kenny goes first, Daniel won't be able to Turbo Bolt until turn 2, which, I mean, if you Turbo Bolt and then Landorus has 3 energy by that point, well, you just get smacked with Land's Judgment and your Mega Manectric EX gets knocked out. So it's going to be a pretty awkward situation if you want to even power up Mega Manectric.
It can potentially even be a Land's Judgment where you don't have to do the discard. You can just take the knockout if you have enough strong energy ready to go.
Yep. So this will change the complexion of the matchup a little bit. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't know if Landorus EX can carry you to all 6 prizes. You're going to have to power up Primal Groudon at some point. But it is worth noting that the Landorus EX Crobat deck is one of the reasons that Mega Manectric with Genesect has kind of fallen off, especially during the middle of the season. Landorus EX just puts on way too much pressure on Manectric EX with the weakness, fighting stadium, all that stuff. Genesect EX also doesn't trade too well with Landorus. Usually have to use G-Booster to knock it out. So starting with it definitely puts on a lot of pressure, and this will change the flow of the game.
Yeah, it's weird. It does help you in a lot of ways. You can start dropping damage immediately. If it can take a knockout, it definitely serves its own purpose. But oftentimes, if you don't, for example, I'm seeing, does Kenny run the Spirit Link at all in his list?
Nope.
If you don't have the Spirit Link, you cannot Primal Evolve while also attacking in the same turn. So at one point, you might have to make a decision, like, okay, I guess I don't attack because I need to start working on my end game plan as well.
Yeah, there probably will be that awkward one turn where you have to get Primal Groudon in play. Usually you don't see Spirit Link in these decks just because your deck's going to be so slow anyway. You don't really care about losing the turn, but we do see the second energy on Landorus EX, the Hammerhead putting 30 damage on both of Daniel's Pokemon. And this sets up for a pretty big Land's Judgment if Daniel does decide to go for that Turbo Bolt.
Yeah, this is an awkward scenario. If you don't retreat, then I guess you can get eaten up by the expensive Land's Judgment, where he decides to discard his fighting energy. The second Genesect definitely helps. But if you want to start accelerating energy with Manectric, that thing is wide open to really anything Landorus EX does because of that fighting weakness.
Right, and if Kenny can get a strong energy, he won't even have to discard for Land's Judgment to knock out that Mega Manectric, if we do even see a Mega Manectric, unless Daniel gets Rough Seas, which...
Oh, there it is.
There you go. So we see Rough Seas coming into play. He can heal 30 damage from that Manectric EX. Genesect EX, not a lightning type or a water type, so he won't remove the damage, though.
That's often what you see Mega Manectric EX paired with water type of attackers, is typically because Rough Seas can sort of abuse both of those. Did he not use the Rough Seas?
Yeah, he forgets to use that and also does not Mega Evolve. So if Kenny has a Lysander here, this could be a really big turn, but nope.
Juniper.
Yeah, once again, has to Juniper instead.
I mean, he's still in a good spot, but that would have been an amazing spot if he can pull up and knock out the Manectric. It wouldn't have even mattered what energy he attached.
Right, and we see a Hard Charm onto Landorus EX as well. That's actually really big in terms of doing the math. Landorus EX resists lightning, so if a Turbo Bolt does happen, he'll only take 70 damage, which means Genesect can't follow up with a Megalo Cannon. So that Hard Charm reducing 20 extra damage, that goes a long way to making sure it survives.
Yeah, it might end up forcing the Genesect to grab the knockout. Ooh, Max Potion. Strong card. It's funny, we were talking about how you don't often use Max Potion in this matchup because you're taking full knockouts. You're not leaving damage counters on the field, the Primal Groudon. But Landorus EX actually does the opposite. It does this chip damage with Hammerhead.
Yeah, but, I mean, forgetting to use Rough Seas last turn is a pretty big deal. If Daniel does get Mega Manectric out, it will be susceptible to Land's Judgment with a strong energy. So it's still really risky if you want a Turbo Bolt if you can get Mega Manectric out this turn.
Well, it looks like he actually does have the replacement Rough Seas already ready to go. So we'll see. Will he forget a second time?
Well, he's already healed the 30. He had 60 damage on him to start the turn.
My bad. Yeah, you're right. So he could have had 0 instead.
And that could end up being a big difference. But it looks like Daniel is struggling to find that Mega Manectric EX as he discards Deoxys EX with that Acro Bike. And, he has to pass the turn. Now,
once again, we get to that question. Did Kenny find a Lysander? We've had to ask this question a couple of turns this matchup.
Yeah. These Lysander, these bench targeting effects have been so important in the Pokemon TCG for years now. Just being able to target down the Pokemon you want to go after is so important. We see it with Genesect EX's Red Signal with Lysander all the time. Used to see it a lot with Pokemon Catcher. So, yeah, it's always been super important to be able to pick the target you want and knock it out.
Now, I think I see Lysander in Kenny's hand. What I don't think I saw, though, was the third energy.
Yeah, that's what he's missing. And again, this theme that Kenny can't find energy when he needs it. He plays 11 energy in his deck, which is probably about average.
He started the game with the Professor's Letter, and those are the only 2 energies played the whole game.
Yeah, missing energy drops in a deck like this that's just very linear. You can only attach 1 per turn. It's such a big deal when your attacks cost so much. But there we do see the strong energy getting 20 extra damage, and there we just see another Hammerhead softening up that Manectric EX on the bench again, it looks like.
Yeah, and he did actually, he replaced the stadium once again.
Yeah.
So perhaps Daniel, he's starting to run out of Rough Seas.
Yeah, he only plays 2 in his deck, so yeah, he is running out at this point.
Running out as in has run out.
Has none left. So we're going to see a Trainer's Mail. Daniel really struggling in this game to find Mega Manectric EX. It's his third turn, he wasn't able to get it out. This is turn 4. Will he be able to find it this turn? He plays 3 of them in his deck, so it's not like he doesn't play them, but it looks like we're finally going to see it come into play.
Yeah, the Ultra Ball do it. Had to draw through half or even more of his deck, though.
Yeah, but we're presented with this problem again. That Hard Charm is making the math so bad for Daniel. Turbo Bolt starts off at 110 damage, but minus 20 for resistance, minus 20 for Hard Charm. Now you're just doing 70, but he's going to Lysander and bring up Groudon EX before it can turn into Primal Groudon.
Okay, this could be interesting. I do know that Kenny, I think he had a switch card in hand. I think he had his Escape Rope. But the Escape Rope is also strange because you can't get that really nice knockout on the Mega Manectric because they get to switch too.
Right. So we do see an attachment from Daniel. He can't use Red Signal because of Silent Lab, but Turbo Bolt doing 110 damage to that Groudon EX, getting that Genesect EX all powered up. And G-Booster does not care about Hard Charm. It goes through that effect. So a G-Booster will be able to knock out that Landorus EX.
So we do see the Escape Rope. As expected, Daniel throws up the lesser of the 2 Genesect EX that he has in play.
Oh, but here we see a
Lysander on top of it. Okay, that combo works.
Now, the question is, do you Land's Judgment discarding all 3 of your energy cards just to get this knockout?
Oh,
Kenny says yes.
Yeah, it's quite the toll to pay. You have to discard you don't have to, but you have the choice. Discard all your fighting energy, but that extra 70 damage is huge, and it does grab Kenny his first 2 prizes.
Yeah, but that might have been a super expensive knockout. Again, Kenny has struggled to find energy throughout this game, and the first game discards 3 of his 11 energy, so he may struggle to get more energy, and also he leaves himself with none in play. If he wants to use any attack next turn, you'd have to attach an energy to Landorus, and that's 1 less energy you have on your Groudon. So this is just, again, being in quite an awkward position.
Yeah, and I think the math is weird too. Like, even if he has the strong energy and fighting stadium, that's 140, which is, 10 short, I guess, of grabbing the knockout. Sure, maybe you soften up Mega Manectric EX, but I don't think that Landorus is going to survive another turn after this one.
Yeah, you might just abandon Landorus altogether at this point and switch gears to your Primal Groudon EX. We do see a Karina, so he's going to be able to search for Professor's Letter, which will finally find him some energy cards. And we'll see if he goes for that Primal Groudon or if he just goes for another regular Groudon.
Yeah, what do you do here? Would you prefer to have a fresh Groudon to start working on, or just Primal Evolve this one on the bench?
It looks like he will decide to get a fresh Groudon altogether. Not a bad choice. I mean, it is dangerous just having a Groudon with 110 damage on it already. There are many things that can deal with that. And he's going to attach to the Landorus EX at this point and just chip away a little more with Hammerhead, it looks like.
Interesting. Yeah, it's not really setting up any knockouts immediately. I guess, Daniel doesn't have the long-term heal plan with the Rough Seas anymore, but that's sort of a minor nuisance of an attack.
Yeah, and looks like he's going to Hammerhead. I think he did 60 there. I'm not quite sure if... How much damage did it have on it before? Do we know?
I think it did have 60 on it, so
okay.
It should be another 60, I think.
Yeah, probably. Should be an extra 30 on that Manectric EX if that's the case. But anyway, it seems like Genesect EX is all powered up. But again, that Hard Charm blocking the knockout from Genesect EX's Megalo Cannon. Even though the Muscle Band kind of cancels out Hard Charm, it still leaves Landorus with 10 HP. Since you'll hit for 100, has 180 HP. So... no real way for Daniel to get a knockout on that here. So it still leaves him in a weird spot, but I'm not sure what Kenny really plans to do with the Landorus. If you Hammerhead again, you don't get a knockout. So I'm not really sure what he's planning to do with that damage.
Yeah, it really is strange. Let's see. He was choosing on an Acrobike, it looks like.
Looks like he's going to Versus Seeker for Shadow Triad, which gets him Genesect EX, since you can get any team plasma card from your discard pile.
It's funny how that works. All the blue bordered cards, you don't quite see them as often. They are on their way out. This is sort of Plasma's last stand in the standard format. But Genesect EX is one of those blue bordered cards.
Yep. Now we will see the Megalo Cannon just hitting for 100 damage. Again, not quite enough for the knockout. And it's also interesting that Hard Charm will block any sort of fancy play Daniel wants to do with maybe like a Red Signal and Megalo Cannon hitting the bench. It'll block the 20 damage for that. So he won't be able to get any big 4 prize turns or anything like that.
Yeah, it's like you're mentioning, the Hard Charm really does make that math fantastic. That Landorus EX has 170 damage on it, of a maximum 180. So it can sort of bide for time. Kenny, I guess if he can get a Primal and an attachment, that would be the good start.
Yeah, I think Kenny definitely needs to switch gears at this point. Find Primal Groudon EX. That has to be your ticket to victory at this point. If he can't get that out, Landorus EX just can't do enough. It's about to get knocked out. You might just abandon it this turn, leave it to be knocked out so you can take the turn to Primal Revert to Primal Groudon EX. And you got to find Mega Turbo, get something going.
He only runs 1 Mega Turbo in his list. Some will run more, so you can get like the miracle, all of a sudden, Groudon's ready to go turn.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like he actually has that same option.
Now we do see Lysander bringing up Genesect EX. And he just sends to Hammerhead again. This is not what Kenny wanted to do.
No, I mean, it's admirable that the Landorus has survived the entire game, but it's also not really what you want to see in your game plan. He doesn't have any primals on his bench, so they are susceptible to things like Lysander. And
there we do see a switch. So Genesect EX going to come in the active spot. This does present a strange situation. Genesect EX has 110 damage on it, So if we could see like a strong energy and a fighting stadium, we could see a Rip Claw knockout from the regular Groudon EX. I wouldn't really expect that to happen, but it certainly could.
It's a possibility. And he does have the one energy attached, ready to go. And it looks like Daniel's going to go ahead and take that Megalo Cannon knockout.
Yep, so looks like we're going to be... looks like Daniel's going to take those 2 prize cards in. Man, Kenny is just in such a weird spot at this point. I mean, you have 3 Robo Substitute. You can throw those out there.
You can always discard a Robo Substitute in the active spot.
It's just like, how many turns can he buy? Can he buy enough time to get Primal Groudon up and running and then also knock out enough Pokemon to win the game?
Yeah, I mean, he can get close and just plays an end. So if he is looking for something, he's going to need to find it off of just 4 cards.
Right, and at this point, it looks like Daniel is firmly in the lead. I mean, this could turn around at any point if Kenny can pull off some kind of surprise knockout, but man, this is going to be tough. If he does get that play with the strong energy and the fighting stadium, that would be huge.
I see strong energy. I don't know if I saw the stadium, though. The amazing Rip Claw out of nowhere.
Yeah, he's, as it is right now, he's 10 damage short. He'd only be doing 50 with that Rip Claw. And this could be a big turn for Daniel if he can find a Lysander and bring out that Groudon, knock it out. But it looks like that won't be the case here. So many moving pieces at this point. I mean, just one thing can really throw off the whole balance of the game. Both players had 4 prizes each. We are going to see Versus Seeker.
Okay.
Looks like he has a Lysander in his discard pile. He'll pull out that Groudon EX, and oh no, this could be the beginning of the end for Kenny.
Yeah, unfortunately, was not able to get that Primal Evolution, Primal Reversion. So without that, you no longer are safe with that Omega Barrier. Also, you have much less HP. Gets knocked out of the Megalo Cannon.
And Kenny extends the hand, and Danny will win round number 5 at the World Championships. An impressive series of games there with his Mega Manectric and Genesect deck.
Yeah.
Not something you would expect.
Would you look at that, Genesect? Back at it again.
we love having repeat world champion decks, right? Darkrai EX for all those years.
It happens a lot.
Yeah.
It's almost always like a Pokemon that's, okay, well, this isn't quite as good. You know, it's always like when you write off a deck, like, okay, it had its year last year. It won't do it again this year. They usually do it again at Worlds. It's strange how that works.
Yeah, again, Pokemon TCG goes in cycles, and looks like today Genesect EX was a great choice. Just being grass type turns out is pretty good.
Yeah, 2 of the biggest decks you can expect to find at Worlds are Seismitoad and Groudon, both of them weak to grass. That's a really good start. Pair that with some other good attackers like Manectric and a little bit of healing, and it can go a long way.
Yeah, and it is an interesting kind of hybrid deck. Like we said, Virizion Genesect has usually been the standard for Genesect EX. Mega Manectric has been paired with water-type Pokemon to really cover its weakness against Landorus EX. But, you know, Daniel's just saying, hey, why don't I just take a piece from this deck and a piece from this deck and shove them together, and hey, now we have a deck that's really good against the popular decks. Go figure.
Yeah, turns out those 2 pieces are maybe just the last 2 of the puzzle to win Worlds.
Yeah, so looks like we're going to take a quick little break here, and when we come back, we'll have an interview with our winner, Daniel.